In this video I'll show you 6 really ingenious tricks with panty liners that everyone should know, so be sure to watch the video to the end. We'll start with number 1. All you need is an ordinary panty liner and an essential oil of your choice that you like to smell. Now we cut the panty liner in half, because we only need half of it. You can even cut it into smaller pieces if you like. We now put the essential oil on these halves. A few drops are enough here. Let the whole thing work for a while. The oil is now absorbed into the panty liner and gives off a really pleasant scent. And with this panty liner you can now go to places where you want it to smell really nice and fresh. For example, your wardrobe, because here you can simply stick the panty liner behind your clothes so that no one sees it. It does however ensure that it always smells fresh. You can also use it in drawers or any other places you can think of. Feel free to write in the comments below where you would stick such a panty liner. This way you can create a little hidden source of scent in your home or in a special room. This brings us directly to trick number 2, because you can also use a panty liner in the bedroom. Again, we use the absorbency of the panty liner, and again we need an essential oil, but this time a very special one. At the end we want to put the panty liner into our pillow. I will explain why in more detail in a moment. We need an essential oil with lavender, because lavender can actually make sure that you fall asleep really nicely and also sleep well through the night, as it can have a very calming effect on our organism. You have probably heard that you should use lavender if you can't fall asleep properly, so put some on your panty liner and then stick it on your pillow. It's best to do this in such a way that no one can see it and only you know that the panty liner is now in your pillow. Unbutton the whole thing and stick it somewhere in here. If you don't want to stick it directly into your pillow, you can of course stick it somewhere else on your bed. For example, you could stick it at the end of the mattress, or just stick it somewhere near the bed where no one can see it directly. The lavender scent will make sure that you sleep well at night and fall asleep quickly and peacefully in the evening. If you also have problems sleeping, you should definitely try this trick. About once a week you should renew the whole thing and apply new lavender oil. For our third trick, instead of a small panty liner you should use a slightly larger sanitary napkin, as this is much better suited for this purpose. You'll also need some toothpaste, because what we're going to do now is make a paste out of toothpaste, and for that we also need some baking soda. Put about 2 tablespoons of the toothpaste in a bowl and add some baking soda. I now add a tablespoon of baking soda and mix everything together. In the end you should have a paste like this, which we'll now apply to our feet. I will explain why in more detail in a moment. Spread this paste over the entire bandage. In the best case, of course on 2 bandages, because you have 2 feet. Now take this bandage and stick it under your foot, or simply step onto the bandage with your foot. Now you put a sock over it so that the whole thing stays on your foot. You can then leave it on your foot for 1 to 2 hours. The toothpaste and the baking soda will make your feet really soft. If you have a problem with calluses, you will also solve the problem. After you have left the bandage on your feet for 1 or 2 hours, you can remove it and rinse your feet to remove the toothpaste and baking soda from your feet. Afterwards, put some cream on your feet to make sure they are well cared for. Repeat this process about once or twice a week and your calluses will diminish considerably and your feet will be really soft and supple. You can even use a panty liner on your car, more specifically directly in your car. But here too we have to prepare the whole thing a little beforehand, because here too we want to put an essential oil on our panty liner which we really like to smell. Again, you can cut them into several pieces. For example, you can cut it out round, so that it is no longer obvious that it is a panty liner. Then put a few drops of essential oil on the panty liner and then we can go straight to our car and apply the whole thing to the car. Because the advantage is now the same as in the first trick. The essential oil has been really nicely absorbed by the panty liner and now ensures that it smells pleasant. And so we can now hide this panty liner somewhere in our car. For example, you can stick it in the glove compartment or somewhere between the seats. You can even stick it under the seat. preferably of course in such a way that no one else sees this panty liner. But the whole thing will now ensure that it always smells really nice and fresh in your car. Everyone will ask you how it can smell so good here when you can't see the source of the scent directly, but of course the whole thing remains your secret. Once a week or so you should exchange the panty liner for a new one. You can also cut them into really small pieces and use one of those pieces every week. So if you want your car to smell really nice all the time, try this ingenious trick for yourself. For the fifth trick, we take a panty liner and stick it in our bin. But not really because we don't want to stick it directly on the bin or somewhere in front where everyone can see it immediately. We want to hide the whole thing a little bit. And again we have to prepare the panty liner a little beforehand. This time too we needed essential oil for it. First however you should put the bin liner in your bin as normal and then you grab the essential oil and put it back on your pad. Again of course you can cut it into several pieces. I like to cut it in 2 pieces, but you can also cut it into several pieces or cut it round. As I said, or cut small squares out of the panty liner so that you don't notice it as a panty liner anymore. Now put a few drops of the oil on it and then we can use it directly in the bin. Because what we do now is stick the panty liner under the lid of the bin. Because no one will really see it here when the bin is being used. The person will certainly not look under the lid but just open the bin and throw something in. That's it. You can of course stick it in the bag directly or somewhere under the bag, completely under the bin, somewhere where it won't be seen or suspected at all. But this will now ensure that the rubbish bin will no longer smell unpleasant in the future, but will spread a pleasant scent. If you put it under the lid you will also notice the good smell every time you open the lid. And for the last trick, let's use the panty liner in our shoe, because maybe you know, especially if you have new shoes, that there is a bit of rubbing and scratching at the heel. This can quickly lead to blisters. This phenomenon is especially common with women's shoes, because they are much thicker at the end, which means that blisters develop more quickly. But you are also familiar with this problem with trainers, and that's exactly why we want to use a panty liner. But so that it fits into the back of the shoe and you can't see it directly, we have to cut it to size first. Depending on the size of your shoe, the whole thing is always a little different. Cut them so that you can stick them into your shoe. I'm going to do the whole thing here for this black lady's shoe. I cut off a corner at the back and then trim the whole thing a little bit until it fits into the shoe. And then I can go straight to the shoe and stick the panty liner in the back. The advantage is that the back of the shoe is a bit padded. That means you won't get blisters as quickly as before. Why don't you try out the whole thing for yourself? Would you also like to learn about a 100-year-old cleaning trick that has fallen into oblivion? Then be sure to watch the video I'm linking to you here. You would make me really happy if you click the like button and subscribe to my channel.